You're watching a Highwire Media podcast.
This week on the Big D Breakdown, we're going to dive into 4 Cowboys who deserve blame for the Week 3 loss to the Baltimore Ravens. For the second week in a row, the Dallas Cowboys got wiped off their own field after getting blown out by the Saints. Dallas trailed the Ravens 28-6 going into the fourth quarter. Despite a great rally by Dak Prescott and the offense, it was too little too late as they lost 28-25. There is a ton of blame to go around for this loss, and it really can go to some of the same players who underperformed against New Orleans. While losing to the AFC runner-up by only 3 points might not look that bad, what Dallas showed through 7 quarters of football up until the fourth one on Sunday calls for plenty of criticism. And there's 4 players who stood out for the wrong reasons and deserve the most blame for the loss. Number 4, CeeDee Lamb. Yes, Lamb had 67 receiving yards, but a big mistake cost the Cowboys points when the game was still winnable. Trailing 14-3 in the second quarter, Dallas's offense finally started putting together a solid drive. After a 24-yard catch by Jake Ferguson ignited them, Dallas found themselves in the red zone. Prescott found Lamb over the middle for a completion. He had enough for the first down, but was stripped of the ball by Nate Wiggins. The turnover deflated the offense, and Lamb's demeanor on the sidelines began to deteriorate. The Cowboys would not get that close to scoring again until the fourth quarter when they were hopelessly behind. Lamb was one of the team's biggest stories this offseason. First, he had held out at training camp for more money, much to the dismay of some fans. He finally got his reward with a 4-year, $136 million contract. Unfortunately, Lamb's fumble was magnified based on the result of the Ravens game. Had he held onto the ball like he is expected to 9 times out of 10, he would have had a first down and the offense would have had momentum to finish the drive and possibly score. If the score had been more in the range of 28-14 entering the fourth quarter, Cowboys might have been able to come back and win. Lamb is one of the top receivers in the NFL, and there is little reason to debate that, but he deserves some of the blame for fumbling in the red zone and costing his team points. And then number 3, we have cornerback Carson. Carson has shown little to make anyone believe he is capable of filling in for Daron Bland. For the next several weeks, that is. He was beat in coverage several times against the Saints and against the Ravens. His poor play continued. One could blame the entire defensive unit, and there's no shame in doing so. Carson is one of the vendors who needs to be held accountable. Tough day began on the Ravens' second drive. Lamar Jackson found Nelson Agholor on an out route, and Carson was in position to make the tackle. Instead, he took a horrible angle, and Agholor ran for 56 yards on the completion, with the ball at the 1-yard line. Again, Carson showed poor tackling technique. It might have only been one chunk play, but it was the decisive one that showed how the rest of the day was going to go for the Cowboys' defense. Carson also found himself to talk to the internet when Derrick Henry broke free on a long run at the beginning of the third quarter. While tackling Henry is a challenge for a lot of defenders, Carson got a massive stiff arm to the face that shoved him straight to the ground. Still, that is a tackle he has to make when the running back gets into the secondary. The big play led to Henry's second touchdown of the game. At 28-6, the game was pretty much decided. While Carson looked good in week 1 going against Amari Cooper, he's looked like a late-round draft pick the last 2 weeks. Dallas is paying a huge price for not addressing additional help at cornerback during the offseason. At this point, Bland needs to hurry back from injury, or this team may have to make a trade to get help at that position. Carson was not the only defender out there who made mistakes, but those 2 significant ones showed his poor tackling. Number 2, Tyler Guyton. The whole offensive line can take some blame for this loss. Tyler, though, deserves to be singled out. The first-round pick has looked far from the next coming of Tyron Smith the past 2 games. He held his own against Myles Garrett in week 1. In these last 2 games, the rookie has struggled to be polite. Tyler has been accumulating a lot of penalties the past 2 games, and needless to say, that will get a team beat. At the end of the first half, Dallas had just over a minute to drive down the field, trailing 21-3. Prescott looked deep for Lamb, and they could not connect, but Wiggins was called for a defensive pass interference. However, Tyler was called for an offensive holding, and the penalties offset. Had he not held, Dallas would have had the ball inside the 5-yard line and a great chance to score. They once again settled for a field goal, preventing them from having a chance to possibly cut more into that Baltimore lead. Tyler's day got worse midway through the third quarter when Kyle Van Noy used him as a human turnstile to sack Prescott on a 3rd and 18. It was Van Noy's second sack of the day. Overall, he did not do a good job of helping his quarterback. The left tackle that has to change if he's going to be the starter here long term. He's still only a rookie and has a lot to learn, but he needs to get up to speed much quicker than what he has shown the last 2 weeks. Finally, Mozzie Smith. Another week, another game where Mozzie Smith continues to look like a draft bust. With Jordan Phillips on IR for reasons that are still questionable, Smith got much more playing time against the Ravens. Did not take advantage. Smith had 3 tackles but looked completely overmatched out there. The big play that stood out was Henry's second touchdown run. Lined up against Tyler Linderbaum, Smith got completely displaced and taken out of the play. It opened up a hole right in the middle of the line for Henry to get going, and it led to his second score. Smith was pushed around all game, but that one stood out the most. His inability to get any rush and fight his way through to make key tackles has been a constant issue since he was drafted. Had Smith been there, Henry would have likely been stopped for a short game. For those who watch this Cowboys team closely the past few seasons, Smith's play of getting blown out the way is this team's run defense in microcosm. Osa Udoizi looks the part, but he does not play the nose. Cowboys still have not solved their defensive tackle issues in the middle of this run defense, yet the whole defensive line deserves blame, but Smith is the poster child from the Ravens game. Let me know in the comment section below if there's anybody that we missed in this list, and your thoughts on my list. And next up, Derrick Henry revelation proves he took the Cowboys' free agency snub personal. Henry was not happy with the Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys have dropped to 1-2 on the year, and despite their valiant comeback attempt in the second half, Sunday's game against the Ravens, it's been a disappointing start for the year for Big D. Spence held firm after an ugly start, but it was another letdown at the office for Mike Zimmer's group, which got steamrolled by Derrick Henry. Henry was a big talking point coming into the game. Signing with the Ravens, Henry admitted that he would have signed with the Cowboys had Jerry Jones made an offer. Yes, Jones would have had to meet Henry in the middle salary-wise, but he didn't even call the then free agent. Cowboy fans had a feeling Henry would be set to make a statement. Not only did he show that on the field, but he revealed so much to NFL media's Jane Slater before kickoff. Henry, who lives in Dallas during the offseason, told Slater they had roughly 20 people in the stands cheering him on. For all of the wrong reasons, the Cowboys' rushing attack has been one of the biggest talking points through 2 games. Rico Dowdle has been the best horse in the stable, but the backfield lacks a true difference maker. Henry clearly took it personal that Dallas didn't even call. He ran all over Zimmer's defense to the tune of 151 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, while also tallying 20 receiving yards. He was a headache all afternoon. The Cowboys went on to complete their comeback and be attacking this story from a completely dingle, but unfortunately, it just fell short. There's no doubt that Dallas could have used Henry, especially in this game, as the rushing attack was once again a non-factor. The offense had just 51 rushing yards on 3.2 yards per carry, and Dak Prescott had the only rushing touchdown. Henry would have been a nice luxury to have in the Cowboys' offense, but they opted not to bring him in. Even if they had, it might not change the course of their season to this point. The defense has not been performing well, and the entire offense has struggled in the last 2 games. At the very least, Henry would have brought more balance to an offense that is hyper-dependent on Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. Next up, the Mike Zimmer experiment is not going well. The Dallas Cowboys chose to receive the opening kick against the Baltimore Ravens. While the offense doesn't have a ton of firepower, it makes sense why Mike McCarthy didn't want to put Mike Zimmer's defense on the field first after last week. The drive stalled out before midfield, leaving Zimmer's group with a chance to bail out the offense. That did not happen. Lamar Jackson sliced through Dallas like many expected he would. It took the Ravens 5 plays to travel 71 yards and score the game's opening touchdown. Marvin Overshawn missed a tackle, which led to a big gain, while Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence both were slow to react to quarterback reads. It was a predictable outcome based off last Sunday's performance, and one particular former Cowboy has seen enough from Zimmer. Dez Bryant is not knocking Zimmer, he's merely saying that the Cowboys don't have the players to execute Zimmer's scheme. While it sure looks like they did in Week 1, the 5+ quarters have fans hitting the panic button. That performance also might have been a product of Deshaun Watson, who lost to the Giants on Sunday, being a bad quarterback. One of the best receivers in franchise history, Bryant thinks that Dan Quinn is a better fit for Dallas's personnel. Zimmer deserves a full season before folks jump to conclusions, but it's been the same story as the Quinn era. The Cowboys cannot stop the run. We all remember how much of a nightmare Mike Nolan's defenses were, right? Well, Cowboy fans have pulled out the Nolan comparisons on social media in the first half. That is extremely reactionary. Zimmer's defenses have historically started slow. His scheme and style require require an adaptation period. There's still a lot of game left, but if the defense puts up another dud at home, ending that direction, there will be little benefit of the doubt to give Zimmer. While Dez is among the most prominent Zimmer cynics, the front office did not set up the defensive coordinator for success. The team's nose tackle rotation might be the worst in the NFL, and he's starting a day 3 cornerback who missed a tackle that led to a 70-yard catch and run. That certainly isn't his fault, and he can't tackle for the players. Maybe Bryant is onto something. Let me know your thoughts on Mike Zimmer in the comment section below. And with that, on our next topic, desperate times call for desperate measures. Cowboys are primed to make obvious move to potentially solve the running back struggles. It'd be silly to say that Cowboy fans know better than the front office. At the end of the day, they have an excellent eye for talent and are one of the best drafting teams in the NFL. With that said, there have been countless instances over the years in which Dallas would have been better off had Jerry Jones listened to fans. It was Cowboy fans who urged the team to sign J.K. Dobbins in free agency. Jones and McCarthy wanted Ezekiel Elliott. The lifeblood of the Chargers offense, Dobbins is now the league's leading rusher, both in terms of rushing yards and yards per carry. Meanwhile, Elliott has yet to force a missed tackle, and he is among 6 qualified rushers who have yet to record a run of 10 or more yards this season. Through 2 weeks, the Cowboys' run game has been one of the worst in the NFL. Elliott and Rico rank bottom 10 in rushing yards over expected. According to the latest buzz, Dallas can lean on an obvious possible solution for their Week 3 game against the Ravens. ESPN's reported that Dalvin Cook is a candidate to get promoted from the practice squad for Thursday's game. Jones told 105.3 The Fan that he doesn't see a change that would involve Cook this week. McCarthy said that the Cowboys' running backs need more touches before the coaching staff can truly access the room of Elliott, Dowdle, and Deuce Vaughn. Game script did not do Dallas any favors against the Saints, and the team faced out Browns' rushing defense in Week 1. Regardless, to the naked eye, it is obvious that the running game lacks juice and explosiveness. Dowdle has been fine, but Elliott is a snail in the open field and isn't picking up yards after contact. Deuce Vaughn is not an NFL running back. It would make little sense to leave Cook on the practice squad for another week. The offensive line is still building continuity, but the struggle of the Cowboys' rushing attack boiled down to a talent issue. Cook should not be viewed as the ultimate elixir, but what else does the team have to lose? And from that, we also actually have some unfortunate news. Question so, is Dalvin Cook playing tonight on Thursday Night Football? Well, not exactly. Just as fans predicted, the Dallas Cowboys running game has been borderline unwatchable this season. No running back on the roster has had a rush of more than 10 yards. While the run blocking has been inconsistent due to a lack of continuity, Dallas's offense is entirely one-dimensional. If the Cowboys were smart, they'd give Rico the bulk of the carries. While his 3.8 yards per carry and 2 forced missed tackles don't inspire much confidence, he's a perfectly average NFL running back, and he's been serviceable. The same cannot be said for Ezekiel Elliott and Deuce Vaughn. It is mind-boggling that Vaughn received touches while Dallas trailed Baltimore by multiple scores. Meanwhile, Elliott played just 18.8% of the snaps in Week 3 compared to Dowdle's 46% snap share. Rico has seemingly emerged as the backfield's alpha. Cowboy fans still want to see Dalvin Cook get a shot Thursday night against the Giants. While McCarthy played coy to the media about Cook's status, Jerry Jones laid down the hammer. Jones told 105.3 The Fan saying that Cook won't play because of the short week. That excuse does move the needle because Cook has been on the practice squad for nearly a month. He should have a strong grasp of the playbook by now, and it's not like McCarthy would give him a big workload. What exactly is the harm in activating him? That's not to say that Cook would rescue the rushing attack, but it is at least worth a shot to see if he brings more Deuce than Elliott. Two-time rushing champ, Elliott is one of the best running backs in franchise history. While his vision is still top tier, it looks as though he's running in quicksand. Among 46 running backs with at least 16 carries this season, Elliott ranks 44th in rushing grade, 39th in yards per carry, 46th in yards after contact, and tied for last with 0 missed tackles forced, all according to PFF. Cook has experienced a similar decline to that of Elliott, but he accumulated 112 runs spanning the 2020 to 2022 season, which was the second most in the NFL. He should have fresh legs after logging just 67 carries last season with the Jets and Ravens. 29-year-old could prove to be worse than Elliott, but again, what is the harm in at least experimenting with Cook against docile Giants defense? Even during the season, Jerry Jones can't see what might be in the team's best interest. And now, on to our next topic. CeeDee Lamb ghosting the media is just adding more embarrassment to the Cowboys' loss. Dallas Cowboys suffered their second straight defeat on Sunday, and it was a blowout for 3 quarters until Dak managed to propel Dallas back into the game. If not for 2 failed 2-point conversions, the Cowboys might have actually squeaked out a win. However, the game was lost while the team dug itself a 28-6 deficit. Being that it ended as a 1-score game, you can point to a number of mistakes and decisions that loomed large, which we previously covered earlier in this episode. Perhaps none bigger was CeeDee Lamb's fumble in the red zone, while Dallas trailed 14-3. It was an uncharacteristic sloppy game from Lamb. Even the best players are susceptible to the occasional bad game, and that will happen. What is not acceptable, though, was Lamb's body language. He was seen blowing up on Prescott on the Cowboys sideline, and he would never check back into the game mentally. Lamb was also animated during a conversation with wide receivers coach Robert Prince Jr. It was unacceptable from Lamb, and he compounded the problem after the loss by not making himself available to the media. It is hard to come to Lamb's defense here. Frustration is understandable. He wasn't targeted during the Cowboys' first drive and had a quiet first half altogether, while the team mustered 6 points on the scoreboard. As a superstar, though, Lamb needs to lead by example. While Lamb exploded on teammates and ghosted the media, the Cowboys' other superstars took accountability. That included Prescott, who was the sole reason the game was competitive near the end. Trayvon Diggs and Micah Parsons. Diggs took full responsibility for the loss on social media after he allowed the game-clinching reception to Ravens wideout Zay Flowers. Cowboy fans would have been annoyed with Lamb regardless if he addressed the media. However, taking ownership for his poor body language would have showed leadership and self-awareness. Instead, he dodged accountability when it was his fumble that took all the wind out of Dallas' sails. The way Ravens were moving up and down the field, we cannot be the only ones who thought the game was over when Lamb fumbled. It'd be one thing if Lamb went for 10 catches for 170 yards and a touchdown and showed frustration with It would be one thing if Lamb went for 10 catches for 170 yards and a touchdown and showed frustration with Prescott and other teammates after failed drives. Still would be a poor look, but he had a costly turnover and even dropped some routine passes amid Dallas' comeback effort, proving that he couldn't get out of his own head. Makes his pouting act look so much worse. It was an immature display from Lamb. He can fix this with an apology and a huge game Thursday night against the Giants. Cowboys Nation has every right to be disappointed. Number 88. Before we move on, if you want to support the channel, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/thebigd. Let me know your thoughts on the topics we covered, and give me your thoughts on the Cowboys season this far. Give me your predictions on where they will fall at the end of the season. As always, you can catch us on all major podcast platforms, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching and listening. We'll catch you next time.